Good evening. This is Frank Deneen here, and we're talking about our um, Radio Pitch and Putt interview. And this evening I'm joined by Damien Flemming. How are you, Damien?
Hi, Frank. How things?
Great. I have on the screen at the moment a video of you, me, and Trevor having a conversation and having a drill on putting, which the quality didn't turn out too good on, but I thought we'd just have it in the background and have a discussion. How are you coping at the moment?
Fine, to be honest, Frank. There's much change in my day-to-day life. Really, the only thing that's missing is being honest, is not being able to get down to home to see family and pitch and putt. I'm working away as is, like I work in healthcare, so that continues as is, So
Yeah.
probably busier than ever. But so that's really, other than that, nothing has really changed. It's you'd miss pitch and putt, right? The longer evenings, you'd miss it this time of the year.
Yes.
You probably feel it more now than you normally would, because I suppose when this initially started, there was kind of short reasons, and then the clock changed, and I suppose that's usually a sign for everyone to get out and kind of, start practicing a bit more. So I suppose you'd miss it from that point of view. But other than that, things are okay. We're all staying safe, and I suppose we're following the protocols like we're meant to, and that's the important thing, I suppose.
And that's important. And so long as we all keep safe and keep well, we're all good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, on the video that's in front of me at the moment, I've got my mat out and I'm practicing on the mat, and you're on your putting green that's in your house. You're lucky enough to have one of those, and I'm talking, or we're looking at the drills that I'm doing, and what we were saying in the video is that I missed a 2 foot putt about 20 years ago, and Jimmy Pearson said to me, what you should do now is on the way home on the 13th green in St. Anne's, you should put a ball down, and you, from 3 foot or from a club length, you should try and get 10 in a row before you go out the gate. And that was the plan, and that was the action. So every time that I played, and every time on my way home, I used put down a couple of balls and hit from 3 foot at the back of the green on a flat bit of the green, so that I'd have a way to do it. Now, I obviously do that a lot in my own house because I have a putting mat, and I put it down to about 3-4 feet, and I'm in a position then where I can do that. So, do you do something similar?
Yeah, I suppose, look, we've chatted about it earlier, but I suppose, what it is for me is very simple. It was the late Willie Parker. I remember Deer Park. Look, it was always a weakness in my game was putting, and it wasn't so much long putting. I think everyone kind of is. I wouldn't say there's anyone better or worse to a degree in long putting, but look, championships are won with short putting. That's what it boils down to be honest with you. And I remember I was on the 18th in Deer Park one day. At the time, Willie was actually on the shop. He came over to me and said, "Can I give you a little piece of advice?" And I said, "Yeah." Look, I was always willing to learn. I was only a young fella at the time, and Willie said, "Just never practice any more than like you've just said there, 3-4 feet.
Yeah.
Always practice a straight putt, and always aim to get 10 in a row."
Yes.
And if you get to 6 and you miss, start again and keep going till you get 10. And I remember back then I used to do that until I got 10. Eventually, you'd find a putt on every course that you kind of get comfortable with. But then the thing what I started to do was I started to increase the numbers. So I started aiming for 15, 20. Now you would have long nights. To be honest with you, the 18th in Rocklodge was my usual haunt. It was a pretty flat green, and you would have long nights up there. To be honest with you, before I got the putting green.
Yeah.
Then when I got the putting green, I suppose, and to be honest, Frank, and I'm not going to lie, the reason I got the putting green is when Ray Muffley said to me back in 2011 after winning the match, he said an important question. He goes, "Do you want to win more?" And I thought it was a silly question at the time, but I know what he meant now. Back then, I didn't clue what he meant. I thought, of course you want to win more, but you'd be surprised, sometimes the hunger might disappear after winning one, and the putting green was I felt was needed for me to kind of get from getting that sharp puts out of my missing those sharp puts, that I could take that out of my game to a green. Now, you'll always miss a few, but you build up a confidence. So I think my record is 86. I'm a long way behind you, as we established earlier. But
Yeah.
my record is 86, and I suppose my belief then is that if I miss one, I can always bank in my head that okay, I'll make the next few, because I don't miss that many out of 100, and that's the way I would look at it, And you're always going to miss one or two. Look, everyone knows that. I know your standards are a little bit higher than mine when it comes to it. But like, I know that's the reality. Like, I've seen fellas play for years. You'll always see top players miss putts. You'll always see. You actually probably would see, if you look at the grade, you probably see juniors are nearly better putters than seniors.
Yeah.
If you look at that, because, and they, like, I don't know why that is, but if you look at it, you obviously I see people putting. I remember there's a lady in our club, she's now passed away, but Mary O'Brien. Mary was absolutely a dinger. From anywhere in the course, she'd nearly not get a putt for you.
Yeah.
And you like, I suppose my attitude growing up was always learning from this. Like, the best putter I ever saw playing when I was younger was Derry.
Yes.
But Derry would probably have told you he wasn't. But like, he was who I saw, and he, like, obviously, like, no different than when you came up to Cork, you saw Ray when he was like, I was fortunate enough as we used to see Ray winning those All Irelands, and sure, what he was doing with the putter was scary. And to be honest, Frank, like, although we never like to build you up, I suppose.
No, don't do that.
What you do yourself with the putter is like, it's like, I played you last year in the league final, and you putted me off the course, and it was the same years ago in that Collins in the Munster Match Play final. Again, you putted me off the course, and like, they were lessons learned. And even last year was a lesson learned. And I suppose putting is what it boils down to,
But I play a different game to you and to most of the people that are doing it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there's no point in me learning how to putt from 3 feet, because putting from 3 feet's no good, because I'm rarely inside 3 feet unless it's for a tree. I need to putt. My standard putting needs to be a little bit longer. I need to be the 5 foot mark, because I'm not as good a pitcher as you or John or Ray or any of the really, really top pitchers and in the game. And it does make a difference that you don't have to be, or what you're trying to do is you're trying to maximize your effort. We discussed it earlier. You were saying that you're on 14, 15 greens in a round. I'm on 11, 12 greens in a round. And I'm not as close as the rest. So I have to compensate and make up for it on my putting mat, like I'm doing in the background here. Right now I'm talking about the fact that when I practice my putting in my house, I do it in my socks, because I've actually got a laser measure, and I've measured the length of height that the ball or my putting stroke is off the ground, compared to when I'm on an actual green compared to the putting mat. And I know people talk about it, sure, it's only a millimeter, but it does. It just improves my confidence on what I'm doing. And putting is 90% confidence. That's what it comes down to. We said earlier, just a second ago, you're building up confidence around getting the 10 in a row, and that adds a little bit of pressure on those putts as well, doesn't it? And Willie Parker was great for telling me as well. He said that, it's about muscle memory, and it's about your body remembering what it is, so that when you are under pressure, it becomes valid.
Yeah, it's you're trying to. Trevor mentioned it earlier when we were talking about recreating that environment. And it's very hard to recreate it, obviously, because until you're actually in that position, you don't know what it feels like.
Yes.
And I suppose what I found for years was that when I got into that, I was kind of noted for getting into the position but not actually winning.
Yeah.
And what I felt like, I always said for years I wanted to be competitive, but then it obviously got to a point where you're like, right, enough is enough. I actually start winning, just in my own head,
Yes.
And it boiled down to putting, and what was happening to me, it happened in Stackgallen. I remember very clearly happening. That particularly stands out in my memory as one place that I feel that I really missed putts that I shouldn't have missed. And it always boiled down to, you'll be driving down the road. That's the problem when you're from Kerry or living down here. You always have a long journey ahead of you when you're coming from these nationals, and you have a lot of time to think. And it was always a case of you're thinking of those 2 or 3 foot, and you're thinking it's the simplest part of the game. So, like, if you just get your, like I suppose what Willie told me probably 20 years ago now at this stage, probably didn't start to make sense to me until probably about 2 or 3 years ago, when it actually was like, hang on a minute, what Willie was saying was correct. If you can get this stuck in your head, repetition, you're not going to miss them. And I tend to be a bit quick through the stroke. So, like, he was very much into a belief of every putt is like a new putt, so you don't actually, some people get into this. I see people practicing all the time, and I always say you can practice bad habits as well.
Yes.
If you practice bad habits, you'll pick them up and they'll stick with you as well. But I see people practicing putting, and they never step off a putt. They pull the ball in and they go, and their feet never move. They never once step back off a putt. They're constant, and like, to me, that is just the wrong thing to do. Like, I see probably the greatest pitcher that I've ever seen play the game, to be honest with you, has probably been John. If I'm being realistic about it, when he was really in his prime. Yeah. I suppose really at the peak of his game a few years back. And he would probably tell you, and like, no different to we're probably being honest here, that his putting wasn't probably where he felt it could be at.
Yeah.
But he pitched so well that he probably got away with it.
Exactly.
And he was, and he won national titles based on his pitching. Not everyone has the ability to win a national just on pitching alone, I suppose John Jim would probably tell you that now himself,
I look at John, I look at Kieran Dunscombe, I look at players like that. Now, I've beaten both of those players, but I remember playing or beating Kieran in the national match play up in Collins's Barracks on the 35th hole, and I added it up afterwards, and he was inside me 30 out of the 35 pitches.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me, because but that's, I suppose the thing as well is when you're that good of a pitcher, which those two names you just mentioned there are, they are going to miss more. The reality is, if you give yourself 35 putts from close distance, now you're even I think Frank, you would even say that if you were having a day where you were pitching absolutely on form, you'll probably come off the course going, Christ, I missed more putts today than I did any other day.
Absolutely.
Because you get a little bit complacent, and the problem is if your pitching goes, then you really start to struggle. And to be honest, that's what probably happened to me and Royston last year in the final round, where the pitching, to be honest with you, it went. And you're talking about millimetres. I remember going to Rock Lodge the following morning, first thing, I couldn't go there to kind of see what the hell had gone wrong. And it was probably a millimetre out. And that's the difference between pitching at the level you need to and pitching at the level where you're not going to get much,
Yes, absolutely, and it does make a difference onto how it comes across and how it's built within the overall of the system. Other practice drills that you do as well. Do you? I'm speaking on the video here as well about things like putting with your eyes closed. Is something
I do
that
that as well. Yeah, we're probably as mad as each other, Frank. Actually, but I do that. Yeah. I do close the eyes, and again, I know we probably do it for different reasons. The reason I do it is that I had a tendency for years to follow the putter going back.
Yes.
And then naturally, then I was starting to push putts right, and by just closing the eyes, it actually made me trust the stroke. So literally, you obviously not, you put the putter down behind you, have one look at the hole, and then you close the eyes and you just trust the putter.
Yes.
And you wait. I always wait for the sound of the ball hitting the hole before I actually open them again, which sounds silly. Sometimes you might you know if it's gone past it. It's just there's also a thing I'm not sure. Someone said it to me, probably someone in passing, hearing the ball hit the hole becomes a habit, and that sound is actually it just repeats confidence in your head, Now
there's 2 points I'm going to make. Number one, when I close my eyes, I try to predict where the ball has gone, right? So it's more for me. It's about
by feel,
how I'm going by feel, and I'm trying to say, did I pull that? Did I push that? Or was that good one? And then another thing as well, you said about hearing the ball hit the hole. I'll be honest, I don't ever try to put the ball into the hole. I try to hit the back of the middle of the hole, So I'm not putting into the hole. I'm putting to the back lip of the hole. The idea being that it hits in the middle of the hole and it will drop. And the reason for that is because I'm not afraid to go the 2 or the 3 foot past, so I'm okay with hitting the ball or hitting the hole at speed. And there's other people that are very tentative and try to drop the ball into the hole, and I'd be of a different view.
Yeah, no, and that's definite. I know, we were talking about that today. I'm probably a little in between.
Yeah,
I'm probably not at the stage yet. I like when I'm inside that 3 foot range. I do tend to hit the putts a bit firmer. Because I'm confident, but then when I get longer putts, I tend to I'm not quite there yet, I suppose, from that point of view. But I know, for example, yourself is a prime example. But the most obvious example is I played with Brian and JR in the final round of the stroke this year, and to be honest with you, the way they both push is crazy. If I was trying to force them with them, I'd be only afraid to put the next one because they don't even think of missing. It doesn't even come into their head. And that's a great way to be. And I'm not saying that obviously when you stand over any putt you expect to make it.
Yes.
But there's probably still a part of me in my head kind of going and I suppose that's a psychological thing because I suppose for years my putting was way below where it needed to be, and now it's obviously has improved. Look, there's no point saying otherwise. It has to have improved. You're not going to win things if it doesn't improve. But it's still not at the level that I think it can get to. And that's the aim, to get there. So then when you stand over those 10 foot putts, you're not thinking of missing. you're thinking of making it, and you're thinking, if I don't make it, I'm not worried about the one back. I'm not going to miss that either. You know, like.
But that comes from the 10 in the row stuff as well. The being under pressure,
completely, yeah.
Yourself under pressure.
It builds from there, yeah.
And
it builds from there. Like it's the same though, Frank. Like I've 3 kids, and like the 7-year-old there's gone mad into practicing the putting. I suppose obviously we're in this current lockdown. We have a putting green out there. It's like it's become a tie. But I make her practice from like a foot, and just get used to the technique of knocking it in from a foot. Because look, you can build back your putting stroke, but it's important to get the basic right, you know. And basics are the fundamentals are key, like, you know. And Willie was a firm believer in that. Pitching is different. I think we're all different pitchers, you know. You look at Jason O'Regan, you look at John, you look at the different styles of pitching that are out there. I think pitching is unique to every one person, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But putting is something that you can become a good putter.
Yes.
You can develop,
and you can work on it, and you can develop the stroke that we're doing. Now, again, the video in the background is me knocking in from 5-6 feet. It's kind of, you know, but the idea is that it's mechanical, that it's smooth, that it's the whole way through. Now, and you build that up as you go. You asked me earlier as well, what was the story with my chipping? Yeah?
Yeah.
And
you had to, yeah. Because, and the reason I asked you, people don't realise this, was we've played a bit of pitch and putt together. And
we have, yeah.
When on occasion, I've never beaten you actually, but when you've been beating me, I suppose we'll use it that way. We've actually broke down the chipping stroke, and you have you chipped in 3 times against me last year in the league final, if I remember correctly. But
that's correct.
you have the perfect technique. You know what to do, but the brain isn't allowing you to do it, and it just shows the power, you know. And that's what it is. Because, like, to me, chipping is just an extension of putting. You can keep it very, very simple and do the same thing, and that's what I focus on when I'm chipping. But I love chipping because I've always been someone that's been a very aggressive chipper.
Yeah, and for me, I know what it is. It's my hands quit as I'm coming through the ball, and I just stop. I kind of find at impact I'm just stopping, and that's very, very difficult to manage from a psychological perspective. But I know myself, it's in my head. It's nothing to do with technique or anything. Although
your technique is perfect. I've seen you chip. You chip well, and like you even discussing it. You can break it down.
Oh, it's not a question of knowing what I'm doing wrong. I just know what happens. But I need to talk to you about your chips, and I'm going to mention it again, specifically the chip in Glenville off the back of the 16th. I mean,
it was a handy one.
Well, it wasn't really. I mean, someone like me would be sweating bricks over that. And, you know, just to fill people in, you were playing on the 16th hole in Glenville, national stroke play, 53rd hole or whatever it was. You know, you were leading, I think, at that stage. The pressure was on, and you went long on the green. It took a bad bounce, and you ended up 4 yards, 5 yards off the back of the green. Not the ideal place to be on what is, for me, a dikeable hole, because if you're below the hole there, you're in good shape. But you had a chip that was sloping away from you, was downhill, and your championship was on the line for that. Now, for me, that's very difficult. I know where I'd be in my head on that shot, but you seem to take that in your stride. Do you want to talk us through that shot?
Yeah, I suppose it was very straightforward to me. I suppose to give people an idea how easy the hole was playing that day. Kevin McCarthy, who was out with me on the same day, hole on Mondays, and the exact same. So I teed off first and hit. To be honest, looking back, and it was probably a shot that could have killed someone. But I didn't hit a very bad shot. The psychology in my head was like, hit the back of the green and spin it down to the hole, because there was a slope there and the balls were spinning. But as we know, the place was like the road, so if you were a foot deep, you were dead, like, you know. And I suppose I was thinking at the time, I know people were thinking, I didn't realise at the time 3 pars was going to win me the championship. Like, you know, at the time I was thinking I didn't know a couple of birdies here, because you're playing with the likes of, you know, Brian was out behind me. Kevin was after hole and winning, so he was, you know. So I was thinking, I need to birdie, I need to keep kicking forward, you know. So I suppose that was the first thing. I didn't hit a bad pitch, although it ended up in a very bad position. I didn't hit a bad pitch. I hit the pitch and the line I wanted. I was just probably about 2 foot too big. It kicked probably 7-8 yards way out the back. But look, first of all, I'm a very confident chipper, so I wouldn't be fazed by where the ball was. That was never going to faze me. And I had a few things going for me. I suppose the most obvious thing going for me was that I knew it was going to be hard to leave it short, which means straight away I was taking a 5 out of the equation, which could have easily happened from where I was. The ground was quite hard, Frank, so I suppose the one good thing about that was that you had an ability to spin it off of that. Like, I would have played a lot of golf over the years and would have got down quite low in my handicap in golf. And I would have had this ability to play off a very tight surface, and the grass was, as you can remember, in Dimple, it was brown. It was practically dead. So, like, the lies were poor and people were really struggling off those lies because the grass was so tight, whereas I actually didn't mind it. So I suppose what I can remember, I'd love to go back there and see was it actually there. Whether it was there or not was irrelevant. I saw a bank. It might have been very small, but I saw a little spot. Yeah. I was like, if I can land it in that, that's going to deaden it. And then if I get the hop, actually when I hit the chip and it took the first hop, I thought this has a chance of going in. Which sounds a bit silly at the time, but I was like, this actually has a chance. And it's just look, one of those things. If I went back and hit it 10 times again, people say I never again get it up and down. I'd be confident enough that I would. But like, it was literally, first of all, the pitch was probably, I'll never be in that position again. I'll never put the ball there again. It was a shocking pitch. But like, in reality, I suppose I didn't go up there thinking, God, I'm dead here. Like, I would be quite confident in my chipping ability. I would have actually been more afraid of a putt from the back of the green than a chip from 10 yards out the back of it. And that might sound silly because I felt it would generate a bit of spin from the chip. And once I saw there was a little bit of spot, like I landed and the thing was just landed there. So had the confidence to actually throw it there. Plus, I suppose, Frank, look, I was third the previous 2 years. I had been second in it. I was like, Christ, I'm due one of these. Surely, God, I'm not going to throw it away this time, you know. So there was a bit of determination in my head as well, kind of going like, I'm getting this up and down, whether I like it or not. And then, of course, which is the most obvious thing to think about, because when we're talking about putting, I left myself 3 foot up the hill.
Yes.
And again, I know the chip, when I got there, I goes, oh, here we go, this is Stack Allen all over again. I missed these in Stack Allen. But that putt was probably harder for me than the chip. Because it left me that dreaded 3 foot up the hill. I know it was dead straight and there was no reason to be missing it, but they were the putts that historically I have missed when in those positions, you know.
And that's exactly why what we're talking about, the 3 foot drills, the drills from 3 foot become so important and become so vital. That's what it boils down to. That's what it boils down to, Frank. Like, I know definitely I was runner up in a stroke playing RGSC. I told you earlier, I can still recall a putt that I missed on the 8 or 9 to shot. I remember Paddy O'Sullivan was watching me, and I remember turning around to Paddy and I said, that's going to come back to haunt me. Yeah. And it was literally about 2.5 foot and didn't touch the hole with it. And like, I was noted for doing that. I remember the same day I sank some putts from probably 10, 15 feet, which should never be made. But that's the putt that I remember. Yeah. And it was the same in Stack Allen. You'll never remember the long putts. You'll remember the short ones you miss, because they're the ones you can control in my eyes. They're the ones that you shouldn't be missing. And they're the ones that matter. I mean, Trevor said to me earlier, do I miss many of those? Of course I miss the short putts. I consider myself a good putter from inside 6 feet, or as good as anyone. But I still miss putts inside 6 feet. So people can't be beating themselves up and expecting to get everything all the time. Yes, I will get more than most, and yes, I'll get more than I'll get the vast majority of them. But you can't beat yourself up. For people who are at home, I'd say get out your putter, pick a spot on the carpet. Or you said earlier that you used to use a cup when you were a kid, yeah? Yeah. You sort of like anything at all. Like, at the end of the day, if you're like the ball, it'll go into it, because the way the cups are designed. Like anything at all, like, even if you're only using the back of the cup or you're just using the cup as a target, anything at all, it's repetition, at the end of the day, and as we say, it's about building that muscle, maybe about developing that stroke from that. And look, it's the basics, if you start off coaching in any way, shape or form, you're going to start teaching people to put the ball into the hole from 2 or 3 feet. That's where you're going to start from, whether you like it or not. And that's what it'll boil down to every single, it's the same. If you look at any golf tournament that was ever won, it'll boil down to who didn't miss those putts, who stood up under pressure and made those putts, and like, I suppose that's what it boils down to at the end of the day, Damien, thanks a million. I feel sorry for Trevor. We had Trevor on the earlier call. We don't have him on this call. And
he was out practicing somewhere.
He was, yeah. He's on the video here on it. Before I'm going to tell one quick story. I was working in Canada a couple of years back, and there was a golf tournament. It was minus 15 degrees outside, and it was an indoor golf exhibition in this big hall in Calgary. And I arrived in, and they had a putting mat, very similar. Well, it was a bigger thing, but similar to the yoke that I had, and they had a competition. You entered $5, and you could win. You could win a prize, and the prize was, or the challenge was, from exactly, I think it was 7 feet, how many in a row putts you could get. And I was there saying, are these guys for real? That's like, is this made for me or what? So the guys were saying, oh, the record is 13, and the leading was 13 at that stage. And I was saying, oh my God, I could have a crack off this. So I played my $5, and I had 11 in a row, and then I missed one. And I said, oh, I'll have to have another go. And I paid the other $5, and I missed the second putt. And on my third $5, I got into a bit of a groove. And you can do that with putts like that, and it's nothing like a bit of confidence. By the time I got up to, I think it was 55, there was a crowd around me in the individual in that tournament, and it just builds your confidence that you get into a routine. And then when you stand on a green with a national title potentially on the line, you're not afraid of hitting it. You're not afraid of going the 2 foot past, and you can strike it majestically. I'm going to leave it one last thought. I played in the intercounty with Declan Freeman, and I remember standing over putts with Declan, and Declan was saying, would you take it easy with the putts? You're hitting them way too hard. You're hitting them way too hard.
That sounds like Declan, right?
Yeah, and we were on one hole in Castle Island on the 8th hole, and we were up the back of the green, and he said to me, lag it. And I said, would you stop? Go away. I'm not lagging a putt. You're mad. And I hit the putt. It must have been as hard as I've hit a putt in a long time. And it smashed into the back of the hole, went about 6 inches in the air, and slam dunked in. And Declan was green on the edge of the green looking at it, because if it had gone missed, it was off the green. But look, it's about confidence. It's about getting over this
without a doubt, yeah. And I suppose the key is, Frank, it's the one aspect of the game right now. Like, everyone's at home, people, you don't need, I'm fortunate enough that I have a putting green at the back of the house. Yeah. You don't need that. The reality is, you don't need that. You could throw something down. Yeah. And a mat and a piece of carpet. Realistically, a doormat is probably 3 foot in length. You could easily practice developing a stroke on that. You don't need
a mat. Is perfect.
It doesn't take a huge amount of finance to actually practice those 3 foot putts. And it will stand to you. And you can be guaranteed that somebody that will listen to this, they'll end up having a 3 foot putt somewhere over the course of the year. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but over their lifetime. And they might actually come back to, I've made these putts before, and you can't beat that when you're over those 3 foot putts to win a championship. And I know that, I've missed them, and I've lost championships because of that. But I always say you have to miss them. You have to lose a few to win a few, and that's the reality, And if people, I always say to anyone, if you stick with it, if you do the basic things right, it does pay off, and you will eventually get your reward,
Damien, thanks an absolute million. I'm going
to
leave
bother,
you.
Frank.
All right, and that was excellent, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day.
Stay safe.
Thanks,
bye, Frank. Bye.